Hello everyone, Jay Warden here, and though I'm a bit late to the party, and the fact I only launched this channel a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to give my thoughts on the latest trailer for Star Trek Picard. As this is my first impressions video, I need to quickly give a bit of background on my current view of the modern state of Star Trek, so if you want to skip this a little bit, then the time code for the review is about 2.5 minutes in. Though I absolutely love and adore Star Trek in general, I've not been the greatest fan of how it's been since the new Trek films and then Discovery came along. While there are definitely some elements to Discovery I like, I often find myself being annoyed with the characters, the writing, and presentation, and I'll probably cover more on this in a future video, probably by doing a impressions video of the latest Season 3 trailer for Discovery, or reviewing the Discovery episodes directly. One of my biggest problems with Discovery is that it has rarely felt like actual Star Trek to me. I mean, sure, it's got the names, the elements, the places, the sound effects and whatnot, but it often comes off to me as trying to be this dark and moody sci-fi show that often likes to have lots of people shouting at each other, disregards previously established canon, and likes to blow its load on galactic level doomsday plots. Star Trek to me has always been this largely hopeful, optimistic view of the future where our crews go on adventures, visit new planets, meet new races and get into some shenanigans and then maybe have a good moral dilemma on the way, and Discovery just lacks a lot of this for me. It's also why the Orville really resonates with me, because it really does feel like the Star Trek show many of us wanted but never got. Another big problem for me is that I really don't like the character of Michael Burnham. The show keeps trying to make me care about her and make her the centre of everything, when Star Trek was always about more of an ensemble performance of characters with a strong captain at its centre. The show looks gorgeous and obviously no expense is spared in the creation and design of everything, but that doesn't make a good show to me just because it looks pretty. This is just a brief overview of my feelings for Discovery though, and I don't want to get into it too much here because this is about Star Trek Picard, but my feelings about Discovery do inform my current thoughts and concerns that I have with the new series. I know that it's being made by the same people, although Alex Kurtzman was replaced as showrunner, so at the moment I remain very cautious, but hopeful. I admit my love of the next generation may colour my judgment here, but unlike Discovery, we're dealing with very established and beloved characters here, and I'm desperately hoping they won't ruin them. Anyway, let's take a look at this trailer, shall we? My initial impressions are, as I said, cautiously hopeful. I immediately got a kick out of seeing the old TNG uniforms and an image of the Galaxy-class starship, but I also immediately thought it's a case of the member berries and worrying that they might be just doing this as a cheap way to draw in Trek fans by saying, "Hey, look, you remember the Enterprise and the uniforms?" before going back to schlocky action and moody dark drama. Both of the trailers have shown Picard tending to a vineyard, and this I do like because it's a good callback to the family history of Picard, his brother Robert tending to their family vineyards in the episode Family, and then in All Good Things, we see an older Picard, also 25 years later, which matches up quite nicely with this timeline, tending these vineyards. There's a review episode from Red Letter Media where Mike and Rich discuss a theoretical pitch for a new Picard-based show called Star Trek Galaxy. I honestly thought this sounded brilliant, but the way Mike started it was like in All Good Things. You have Picard tending to his vineyard when someone pulls him out for one last adventure, so I wondered if someone actually paid attention to him and just threw this in, or it could just be coincidence. I don't know, I think I'd rather watch Mike's pitch than whatever CBS might be throwing at us here, but we'll see. So in the beginning it looks like this might be some sort of dream sequence as we see Data painting in the vineyard with both him and Picard wearing their old TNG uniforms. When they dropped Data in the last few seconds of the first trailer, my reaction was like, oh no, because Data looks weird. Obviously Brent Spiner has aged quite a few years now, and it's hard to pull off the ageless android look at this point, but in this trailer he looks even more weird. The hair is all wrong, he looks chubbier. I don't know, I just wonder if they've made a big mistake putting him in, or didn't they try to do some better de-aging CG on him? That kind of tech is being used very effectively these days. Just look at The Irishman or Will Smith's latest film Gemini Man, where he's literally playing against a young version of himself. I hope we're not seeing the real Data here, to be honest, and it's just flashbacks or dream sequences. I know B4 exists, and I hated that from Nemesis as a cheap way to just try and keep Data alive in some form so they could bring him back if they wanted to. I always felt it undermined his ultimate sacrifice back then. But we do also see what looks like very Sung looking androids all lined up together, so I wonder if Starfleet managed to start making a bunch of them, as was hinted at all the way back in the TNG episode Measure of a Man, with Bruce Maddox trying to learn how to build more androids like Data. Also in this apparent dream sequence we see some sort of battle taking place, but I don't recognise the ships, and I'm guessing this is some sort of thing that happened in Picard's history which wasn't one of his greatest moments, maybe even the event which forced him out of Starfleet into retirement. A lot of the mystery about this series is surrounding the young woman who comes up to Picard asking him for help, who she might be, what she means to him, and how she figures into the grand scheme of things. She's clearly going to be the driving factor of the plot, but my big concern is this might end up being yet another big Doomsday Save the Galaxy plot involving one all-important character, and this concern is backed up by the first trailer where someone says, "She's the end of all, she's the destroyer." I really hope this isn't the case, because I'm really tired of these kind of plots now, which basically blow their loads on big and epic way too early, and then they just run out of steam, because where do you go from there? Big and epic is fine, as long as it's a slow burn to get there, because then it feels earned, and far more impactful because you've taken the time to build it up, get invested into the characters, so you care about what happens to them in such situations. Deep Space Nine took 3 seasons to build up the threat of the Dominion before having a massive intergalactic war that threatened the very existence of the Federation. And even then, once that war took off, it took 2 seasons to wrap it all up, during which time we got some brilliant episodes that really pushed the boundaries of how the ideals of the Federation hold up when fighting for its very survival. But yet still managing to maintain the feel of being Star Trek, looking intelligently at the moral questions presented with an optimistic outlook, and still finding time to have self-contained adventures. The Borg are also clearly a big part of this plot, with both Seven of Nine and Hugh making return to the franchise. I found the inclusion of Hugh to be a bit random, because we only ever really see him in 2 stories in TNG, that being I, Borg and Descent Parts 1 and 2. But I do find myself intrigued how he will play into this, because I did always wonder what happened to him and his fellow rogue Borg after they broke away from the collective, so this will be interesting to see where they go with this. He looks a bit more human in this, clearly having managed to get rid of many of his cybernetic exterior, and it will be interesting to see how he'll interact with Seven. As for Seven, I really did get a kick out of seeing her again, and I find myself quite excited to see what part she'll play in this, but I'm also somewhat ambivalent about how Jerry Ryan is playing her, because she doesn't really sound like Seven. But, to be fair, it's been some 20 years since we last saw this character, and that's plenty of time for her to become far more human than when we last saw her on Voyager. Her dual wielding those rifles though is just... okay, whatever. There's a Borg cube which is clearly heavily damaged and surrounded by what are apparently Romulan ships. As far as I know, the events of Star Trek 2009, which brought about the alternate timeline, are confirmed here, with Romulus having been completely destroyed in the Prime Universe after a supernova event. I find myself quite interested to see how this plays out, because presumably after losing their homeworld, the Romulan Empire has likely collapsed into an even more violent and dangerous faction out for survival at all costs. I'll be intrigued to see what their society has actually turned into as a result of these events and how it affected the political balance of power. If they've captured a Borg cube and are plundering it for technology, this will absolutely make them a very serious threat, but also just as likely to unintentionally unleash something that's even more destructive that will kill everyone, perhaps tying into that potentially Doomsday Galaxy ending plot. There's also some brief scenes of what appears to be a prison, and the mystery woman is shown in this prison along with lots of other people. I don't know if these are all former Borg drones, or have been previously assimilated, or have Borg technology in them, I don't know, we shall find out. But did anyone else notice the somewhat humorous signs with the number of days since the last assimilation? It's an interesting little touch. We also see a TOS-era Romulan bird of prey in combat with a couple of ships, one of which I think is going to be the ship Picard and his new crew are on. I'm quite curious about seeing this old design, but again it could tie into the collapse of the Romulan Empire and how they might be scavenging or using anything they can now, including old ships they might have lying around, or if it's just a modernised version of that design. At least we're seeing classic phaser and disruptor beams though. I wasn't a huge fan of the Discovery era phasers, which felt very generic and lacking punch to them, though they did fix this somewhat towards the end of Season 2 by showing classic blue phaser beams and the D7 battlecruisers firing disruptor beams. As for the new crew that Picard is going to have his adventure with, I don't really have a lot to say about that right now. It looks like Picard tries to go to Starfleet for help but doesn't get it, so assembles a ragtag bunch of individuals or mercenaries perhaps to get his mission done, and I'm guessing that will probably take up a couple of episodes before moving on to the main plot. The thing is, none of them really stand out to me with the exception of the one I think Romulan character who looks like he's some sort of samurai warrior. I honestly don't like this very much, and it feels very much like an elf from Lord of the Rings or something, and I really hope it's not that cliched, but you know, we'll see. The captain of this ship is smoking a cigar, which is weird for a Star Trek show, but hints at some sort of Han Solo-esque type character perhaps. But yeah, nothing really stands out character-wise, and so far I'm just more interested in the established characters we're seeing. Which brings me to what is by far my favourite aspect of the trailer, seeing Riker and Troy. The chemistry between Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes is so very clearly still there, and it really shows in the brief moments we see them together, and I love it. I think the trailer was smart ending on the two just sitting and having a chat together because these are two characters we love and care about. I reckon though that these will probably just be fleeting moments in the series because this is about Picard and not a TNG reunion show, and Riker is clearly not coming along with him, and probably both him and Troy are just there to say hello and then he can talk about his problems, get some advice, and then move on to pursue this adventure he's about to embark on. So as I said, cautiously optimistic. I know there's a lot of behind the scenes shenanigans going on, much like with Discovery, so I do really worry about how this will turn out, but I look forward to seeing the end results all the same. So how do you feel about this trailer? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this video please do like, subscribe and share, and I'll see you next time.